Now let's get into some news.
Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. These are facts.
First story I'm going to talk about, it's a headline from Reuters. Germany will end oil imports from Russia by year end, says minister. Now, this is interesting because the way that Germany was going is they were building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to bring gas from Russia. And I mean, they're probably still going to do that. And it seems like they have stopped the Nord Stream 2 project, but like it'll still probably resume at some point. And they're no longer getting the oil, not just gas. So there looked to be kind of like this German-Russian cooperation going on, and more so than like definitely United States and Russia cooperation, and mostly limited to this sort of like utility-based supply importing type stuff, but that is kind of being reduced in its capacity. This next story is from Newsweek. It is actually from 2018, so this is not new news, but I did read it this week and I found it interesting, so I just want to briefly call attention to it. The headline, North Korean waitress who escaped say they were actually kidnapped by South. So I'm going to read a little bit from the article, just a little. A dozen North Korean waitresses and their male manager, who were praised for a daring escape from their government, have claimed they didn't flee at all. Instead, they were forcefully taken in a plot hatched by rival US-backed South Korea. It continues. In April 2016, Ho Kang-il led 12 female workers from his North Korean restaurant in the Chinese city of Ningbo to South Korea, where Seoul's Unification Ministry reported them as having defected freely. North Korea quickly claimed they were kidnapped, even though this was dismissed as propaganda to everyone outside of North Korea, of course. But continuing, quote, but last night on South Korean television, He, I think that's how you say it, himself admitted that the women were unaware they were being sent to South Korea, and that the whole operation had been orchestrated by him and South Korea's spy agency. So I just really want to put this out because a lot of North Korean defector stories are used for propaganda. They are paid a lot of money to say things that are anti-North Korea, and that's not to say that a lot of them would have criticisms of North Korea. Obviously, if they defected, then they would have an issue with it. The issue is these people did not defect, and they were basically used as a propaganda prop for the South. And North Korea actually called it right. So, again, there's a lot of things I wouldn't want to live in North Korea very much. Maybe if I was born there, I'd like it more, but that doesn't seem like the type of lifestyle I would want, of course. But I do think people should have a healthy skepticism about some of these stories about North Korea and North Korean defectors. Again, this article is from about 4 years ago, but I just read it this week and wanted to draw attention to it.
And the winner is a movie from South Korea. We got enough problems with South Korea with trade. Was it good? I don't know. So many great movies. Best foreign movie. Did this ever happen before? What the hell was that all about?
While we're talking about Asian politics, I do have this story from Al Jazeera. You may have heard about this. I've seen little bits and pieces reported on about this, but China has established new relationships with the small island country, the Solomon Islands. If you're not familiar with where the Solomon Islands are or what they look like, they are, they are northeast of Australia. They are east of Papua New Guinea. So China and Solomon Islands have formed this relationship. It is a security pact, to be more specific. And what this would basically mean is this is the type of military relationships that the US has a lot of countries. It allows China to establish a military presence there. And of course, Australia and the United States are completely pissed off about this, as you can imagine. The US has a very, the Pacific Ocean is ours mentality. Now, as far as I know, maybe there's new reporting on this, but the pact basically is unknown what it says, but there was a leaked draft, a so-called leaked draft, that made it seem like Chinese warships would be able to stop in the Solomons, and Chinese police could be deployed to the archipelago's request to maintain social order. And the reason why Australia is so mad about this is because it was basically decolonized by the British fairly late. So it was a part of the British Empire until 1978. Then after that, there was some political unrest in the 90s into the 2000s. During this political unrest, Australia and New Zealand interjected and deployed troops there. They had their own little, kind of the equivalent of what the US does in Latin American countries. Similar type thing. Or Haiti's a perfect example. Now, what this is basically saying is if we ever need, troops or someone to come in and quell these, protests, which are pretty much ongoing there, then we will call China. We are not calling Australia. They're not invited. So this should be interesting, even though it's a small country like Solomon Islands. This is a situation that's very much exemplary of the type of geopolitics that are going on between China and kind of that aligned block of country and the United States and that aligned block of countries.
It was Coney they called Coney Island the playground of the world. There was no place like it in the whole world. Still remember in my mind how things used to be, and I feel very bad. And we used to sleep on the beach here, sleep overnight. They don't do it anymore. Things changed. See, they don't sleep anymore on the beach.